Today, August 2nd at 7:34 p.m. I will do a roll call. Mr. Gito. Here. Vice Chair Cavey.
Present.
Mr. Carrara.
Here.
I'm here, and Mr. McCrisky is absent today. If you are able, I ask you to stand to salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. In accordance with Governor Baker's declaration of June 16, 2021, granting certain pandemic-related authorizations related to public board and town meetings, and recently extended until March 23, 2023, this meeting will be conducted both in person and virtually via Google Meets. To join via Google Meets, https://meets.google.com /URK-ANXP-YA, or you can call 1-813-453-5702. The PIN is 944-877-379#. The meeting may be recorded by SMAC Cable Television and broadcast live, and may be live streamed at www.stoughtontv.org. A recording of the meeting transcript or other comprehensive record of the proceedings will be posted on the town's website and/or SMAC as soon as possible after the meeting if live broad stream or live streaming is unsuccessful. Time or approximate and items may be taken out of order at the chairman's discretion. So before we jump in, I want to just do a litmus test. Is everyone that's here online and in our audience here for the joint meeting Downtown Redevelopment Task Force Next Steps, joint meeting Stoughton Redevelopment Authority, accept land donation, Goddard Highlands, vote to approve the warrant for the state primary election Tuesday, September 6, 2022, policy on special town meeting council services, alcohol policy review on BYOB, update on Comcast contract renewal, update on SMAC, Stoughton Media Access Corporation audit, update on Community Paradigms Paramount Town Meeting, the consent agendas that are listed if you have a copy of the agenda. Yes. You get an echo?
Is this the sound of the fan above us?
Okay. She's going to turn off the AC. If anyone is here for an item that is not listed on the agenda or I did not announce, please raise your hand. Okay, so then you're a citizen's request, Mr. Lord? Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Mark Zamanian, Chair of the Redevelopment Authority. Looking around, I do not have a quorum tonight, so I will not be opening a joint meeting from the Redevelopment Authority standpoint, but of course there's two of us here to speak and ask or answer any questions you might have. Just wanted you to know there's no physical need to open an agenda for us.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's so helpful. To my fellow board members, are there any items that you would like to table for tonight and delay it until a subsequent time?
Yeah.
Such as the,
Deborah, do you want?
yes, Mr. Crowder.
With Joe not being here, we should probably table 9, the town council services so that Mr. McCrisky could have input. Is that something that we,
would entertain that. I will defer to Mr. Tisdale. Is there an urgency on that item number 9?
Yes, there's current ongoing issues I'd like to discuss with the board tonight.
All right. Okay, good. So we'll continue with that.
Items 11 and 12 are also things that,
Yeah, I agree. It's probably better to hold off on those for the time
Okay.
being.
Okay.
We don't
Let's-
control the volume of our mics. That's done inside, but we can ask if
Yes.
that they turn them up.
Let's see if
It sounds like
Mac.
maybe that's already happening. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
can you
Testing,
hear
testing.
me now?
Still can't.
I
Just letting us know.
suggested items 11 and 12 be tabled as well for another meeting. Could you hear that? Thank you.
Okay.
I'm testing my mic.
Where you holding? So to my fellow board members, do you agree to table items 11 and 12? I'm prepared to talk about item 12, not 11.
I'd rather have Joe here.
For both?
Yeah, because he has a lot of information that he was going to share.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Cavey?
Yeah,
Table
I agree.
item
I think
11.
those are things we should table for the time being. In fact, I'll make just a motion to table items 12 and 11 and 12, update on Comcast contract renewal, and also table item 12, which is the update on SMAC audit.
Second.
Can I get, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Okay.
I don't think I voted, but yes as well. So
Yes, as well.
Sorry.
Okay. Unanimous with those that are here. So let's start off with citizens' comments, please. Are there any citizens' comments from the audience? Yes. Ms. Walsh, please approach the table if you are able and state your name and precinct, please.
I'm still having a terrible,
Okay. She can't hear.
they changed out the batteries, but it doesn't seem to be doing me any good. Cynthia Walsh, Precinct 3. I know that there's an assumption that everyone, we don't need a local newspaper and we don't have to put ads in the Shopper Saver because everyone has a computer, and I don't. And I don't think I'm the only one. So I wanted to remind people that the Stoughton Lions Club Summer Concert Series is going on now, and there are 3 more concerts left. They're sponsored by the Lions Club and the Stoughton Cultural Council, and they're at the Gibbons Soccer Fields Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. On the 7th, it'll be Puddlefish. On the 21st, Blackbird. And then on the 28th, it is what it is. These are free concerts. They're suitable for the family. I'm assuming that they expect you to bring your own blanket or chair. But I didn't want anyone to miss out just because they don't have an internet access. And I don't know if you could hear any of that.
Loud and clear, Ms. Walsh. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, we don't want anyone to miss that. Thank you so much. Any other Mr. Lurie, please approach the table. State your name and precinct, please.
Thank you. David Lurie, Precinct 6. Thank you for taking a minute to, this is a great time right now. The month of August, there's a lot of good news coming into the month of August. It's something I used to talk about before COVID. Every August, I used to say to the board, you're the body that can make a difference with the levy for people's lives because we're paying a lot. We're double-digit inflation. We're paying for a high school. We're paying for a fire station now. We've got a sewer project, on and on and on. There's a lot of cost on the homeowners of the town. And the month of August represents the time where the board could actually make a decision on Prop 2.5. It can say, maybe 2.5 is more than we need. Matter of fact, the only time I've ever witnessed a leader in the town intentionally give a tax cut to the town was the last town manager, the predecessor, who said, you know what, $50,000 came in, we didn't expect it, let's give it back to the taxpayer. And with this stroke of a pen, people saved $50,000, well, across, obviously, the town. We got news on April 22nd, after a lot of back and forth with the town accountant, the town manager, and at the time, the auditor, about what is the deal with TIFs. The deal with TIFs that's unusual in Stoughton is that some people with institutional knowledge about the water in the MWRA, but probably around 20 years ago, because I'm guessing that that's when the TIF agreements got started. But instead of saying, we're going to give you a break, we just want you to pay like payment in lieu of taxes, put the money into the water fund to pay for our connection into the MWRA. So they're already paying, but now that we're done paying off the MWRA, that money becomes available for the budget. So that's an interesting source of money because the businesses that are already paying don't have to pay a dime more at the end of their TIF. They're already paying the same amount that they're used to paying year over year, except now we could actually use the money in any way we want, one of which is to give the people a tax cut, which I think is long overdue. And I want to just throw a couple of numbers out before I go back to my seat. The town accountant came out on April 22nd. Everybody here was copied on this email. And it was a spreadsheet that showed Town of Stoughton estimated new growth values from expiring TIFs. And he rattled off about 6 different businesses in town. And it has a column for each year that those monies would actually roll off into our budget. This year, just inside of FY23 alone, $348,541. FY24, that's the budget that the town department heads are going to be discussing on what revenue is available for us to spend in FY24 is $487,225. Money that they didn't realize was actually coming in through the normal channels that new growth hits our books. But now it's available. Is that just going to be new monies on top of the monies they already get? Or is it going to come back to the taxpayers? The total, when you put those 2 years together, this year and next, it's $835,766. So I just plead and hope that the Select Board will make the bold move that we've seen before to give us excess capacity in the budget and really be a hero for the residents who pay their taxes as homeowners because they really need a break. That's my plea.
Thank you, Mr. Laurie. Any more citizens' requests? I'm looking online. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, moving right along to our Select Board comments. Any Select Board comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just have one comment I'd like to make. It's a general one. This last Wednesday, there was a hearing in front of the Finance Committee regarding a fire station update, and a lot of members of town staff, as well as our interim town manager and the chair of the Select Board, Ms. Roberts, attended that meeting. I originally intended to be there. I wasn't able to because of a commitment I made to my wife, so I wasn't able to do that. I feel like a heel, but I unfortunately had to choose what was going to, in the long run, cause me this, the most personal reputational damage. So I went with doing what my wife was asking me to do. But I have had a chance to watch the meeting, and I was also able to listen in while the meeting was taking place. And I just wanted to thank everybody who participated in that. I didn't hear everybody. I believe Fran's here now, but I believe she was there. I appreciate that, Mr. Tisdale. Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you so much for standing in for me. The fire chief was there, as well as our project manager and also the architects. I believe town council attempted to be there, but was having technical difficulty getting in. But I appreciate Mr. Winter making an effort to get in to that meeting as well. And also wanted to thank the finance committee, specifically Vaughn Inoki and the chair of the finance committee, who I think did a really great job of running the meeting. But more than that, he and I had worked to try to make sure that everything was available for them. And just on a personal level, I really appreciate the work he did to make that possible for the board, and to just overall make sure that everyone was looked out for, everybody got what they needed. And yeah, I just wanted to thank him personally for that work. It was it's a tough job. It's a board that has a lot of very seasoned members of our town government, and they know the rules, they know how things work, and they can, and they also don't take a lot of crap from anybody, so so it can be a bit of a challenge in a sense, but I think it's a good challenge to have, but to run a board that large with strong personalities and with the wealth of knowledge that they have is a challenge, and I just think Mr. Inoki did a fabulous job, and I just wanted to thank him for that. So that was my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cavey. Before we move on, I just wanted Fran to know that we tabled item number 12 regarding the audit because Mr. McCrisky is not here, and we would like for him to weigh in.
Thank you. That's one of the benefits of working in town. I can go home, go swimming, come back. Thank you for letting me know.
You're quite welcome. I just didn't want you to sit there all evening.
And everything, I'll watch at home.
Okay, good. Bye-bye. You have a good evening. Thank you. See you next time. You're right. Any other board comments, select board comments? Okay. And I have no comment other than that. Town manager comments.
Yes, I have a couple comments. Paula New, the treasurer collector, issued the FY23 first quarter real estate and personal property tax bills on June 30th, 2022. These tax bills were due August 1st, 2022. All unpaid first quarter tax balances will accrue interest at a rate of 14% from the first quarter's due date. Real estate and personal property taxes may be paid online at stoughton.org. My second comment would be the town of Stoughton received a MVP grant during the last round for $218,000 for a town-wide drainage model, vulnerability assessment, and adaptation strategies to mitigate future flooding. I'd like to thank our engineering department for working hard to pull that competitive grant application together for the $218,000 grant. That's it.
What will that grant be used for again?
That grant was, we had an article at town meeting last year for a townwide drainage study
Yes.
to update. We had a quite old one, so this will update that old drainage study.
So was that expected to get the grant, or was that?
Well, I'm always pretty positive when I apply for these things, so I told town meeting we had a good chance of getting it, and we
Good.
did.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Things like,
I've come here for a meeting
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. McCris, yes, Mr. Gito.
Ms. Walsh, can you hear me now? I'm just checking because if we ought to get the issue solved now rather than continuing to have you not be able to hear. So let's just do that. If there's anybody else wants to chime in?
Let's all do a. I-
on. You could hear the young lady behind me very clear, and you could hear Mr. Semanian very clear. But Mr. Laurie, I couldn't hear him because maybe he speaks softly or he didn't have the microphone close enough. And I could hear Mr. Gito. I'm assuming he has it closer to his face than the rest of you do. So I think we'd appreciate it a lot if you all spoke up a little louder and get the microphone closer so we can hear everybody. Thank you.
So much. Is Dolores on the line? Okay, Dolores, sound check, can you hear us? Oh. Okay. Well, we'll do the best we can to project. Is this better, Ms. Walsh? Testing, testing.
I realize this isn't your fault, but, I mean, the law requires that there be a device so that I can participate.
The answer to the question would be yes or no.
Pardon me?
Can you hear her?
I'm least able to hear the chair,
Okay.
and I don't know if it's her microphone.
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Madam
Yeah.
Chair.
Lean in. Okay. All right, here we go.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, moving right along. Next on our agenda is Downtown Redevelopment Task Force. Do we have a quorum for that group? So no, we do not. So it is just an agenda item. If there's no quorum. Okay.
I'm the only one on it. I was just appointed, so I've never attended a meeting.
Okay, so here's the good news. This is just an agenda item, and we'll start. We had the option of reviewing the Downtown Redevelopment Task Force. And who was on that task force? I have a list because I received it, and then I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Cavey. On the task force was Mark Tisdale, Vice Chair Cavey, Pam McCarthy, Dan Kelly, Roberta Harback, Mark Zamanian, Andy Ricito, and Tabor Kelly. Okay? So we,
Madam Chair, may I interrupt you one moment? Mark Zamanian, again, Chair of the Redevelopment Authority. We reorganized in June of 2022, and I was on at that time. However, I have been moved off of that, and Roberta has taken the SRA's position currently available on the DRTF. So it was recorded for you that I am on the DRTF. I am no longer on that.
Thank you, Mr. Zamanian.
Yep.
So I was just trying to lay some context. So we had the option for this task force to keep it as is, discontinue it, so dissolve it, or expand it. So what we did, I worked with Vice Chair Cavey, and we're proposing an expansion to this task force. And with that said, I would like to hand the baton over to Vice Chair Cavey so he can present our proposal.
Whose proposal is this? This is your proposal?
This is our
And
proposal.
Mr. Cavy's proposal?
Yes,
It's
we,
not the proposal of the Stoughton, the last committee, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
It's sort of the same as Lou's. This is Mr. Cavy's and yours. Was Mr. McCrisky involved in this too?
So who
I
was
don't
involved?
I don't understand why these committees
Who was involved
get
with?
done, come forward, we're going to pass votes on them. None of us have a chance to speak on it, look at it, or think about it.
Yes, we will. This is,
Or is there going to be a motion made and circumvent everybody, and then it's going to walk through?
so my intent is for us to discuss it to see if those options are viable. And that is to keep the task force as is, to dissolve it, or to expand it.
Well,
We
those,
did-
those are the questions you asked, and I'm ready to answer one of those.
Oh, okay.
And then we can move on if you want to give it a different name. But I don't want to hear a proposal that I wasn't able to even see that it comes in front of me now, and we're ready to expand it, because there's been a lot of things that have happened between the time that downtown redevelopment group was drawn up.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can continue, I'll give you my thoughts, and then you
Yeah,
guys can
please.
just roll and do whatever.
Okay, let me say this before you go. We ran it by Mr. Tisdale and Dan.
He works for the Board of
Right,
Selectmen.
right.
We are the
But-
ones that, I
Yes, I
thank you for
understand that.
Would
I
have been nice
understand
if
that,
Lou
but
or
anyway,
me.
yeah, please, please proceed, Mr. Carrara. What are your thoughts on?
My thoughts
keeping
are,
it as
we
is or
just
dissolving it?
went through the biggest vote this town ever saw, changing the downtown zoning. That zoning now relies in the hand of the planning board. They've vetted everything. The town said, go with God. So now that we're waiting for that to come back from Attorney General's office, if it hasn't already. But to me, that settles the downtown. If we're going to do something else, I'll tell you what really bothers me. And is this comment here.
What page? Oh, it's no.
There's no numbers on the
page
page, thank
number.
you.
Can you hold it up so I can see?
It's under jurisdiction,
Okay, got it. Mhm.
all right?
Keep going.
When I read downtown, I think that's in the square. So I feel as though that the people and the powers to be that worked on that did a good job. Town planner, former town manager, planning board, whoever was involved in that did a heck of a job. And it got by town meeting, which was even better. So now that's the plan. I don't need a task force that now says jurisdiction covered under the task force authority. The entire town. The entire town. That's why we have a planning board, a zoning board, and other things. I think before we expand these people and we don't ask anybody else to be on it, we're just going to, okay, you got a new name here, go crazy. I asked you when I first came on the board that we need to pull boards in here, committees, and reiterate to them what their duties are. We are now depowering many boards by giving out this type of stuff. And I think the whole board should be involved in it, not just two people, and then lay it in front of us and it says votes may be taken. I don't want to be rude to you or anything like that, but you got to sometimes cut the threads on some of the boards. That's why I got rid of that fire station board. I was the one that told you I was going to make the motion. Joe didn't like it, but I did it. And now we have a fire station online. I'm not afraid to say what I think and what's good for this town. Right now, I don't think this is good. We got a task force that now is going to be in charge of the whole town. We're going to change zoning, see what fits. We're going to take somebody's property and then say, that's nice. You pay your taxes on it. But we got a better idea. We're going to redevelop that property so when you sell it, whatever was done there is dead. It's not a good thing.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
Can I
yes,
say
Mr.
something real quick?
Mr.
Through
Katie,
you.
I didn't
Okay,
know.
I was
you-
going to agree
It's
with
okay.
you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Scott, I understand your concerns, but first of all, we haven't even done the presentation, so no one knows what you're even talking about. And second of all, the role of the original downtown task force was to coordinate a bunch of different boards and committees and authorities who all have, some work to do in town, but had no common way of communicating with each other. And so this was just a conduit for informing people more or less, these here are some ideas. Some of it has to be taken up by the planning board, some by the select board, some by the redevelopment authority. Town staff has a role. And so, to kind of jump way ahead before anybody's gotten any real information about any of our thought process in this, to continue to work with these boards in a way that allows us to have a free flow of communications, and have the scope of it be something other than just the downtown, since the downtown zoning is already, as you're aware, we've already kind of crossed that off our list. The scope we thought should change. Now, we can all discuss about what the scope should be. We can decide we don't want any scope. But we took a swing at the pitch, and the first time we really have an opportunity to provide any sort of thoughts at all, it has to be in an open meeting, which is why we're here. And I don't know how to do that except by providing some sort of a proposal. We can always just say, hey, here's the thing, we have no idea what anybody wants to do with it, and then hash it out over several hours. But I thought just providing some context for thinking about it might be helpful to people. And if there's elements you disagree with, then we'll just pair it to whatever people collectively agree on.
I'm just going by what Chairman Roberts said. She mentioned 3 ways to handle it. Joe isn't here. And I really think this might have to wait, because I went through this, and the committees have their tasks. They know what they are.
The Downtown Redevelopment Task Force, because they've
No.
reached out to us
I'm
saying they
talking
have-
about planning board and boards like that when people come in and put their things on the table in front of them. I don't think a task force should be getting in the middle of what their views are and how they're supposed to handle it. Some of them have statutory powers, some of them have just town powers.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me it's just another group to oversee what those 5 people were picked by us to do. I don't need another committee overlaying over that. It just I know what you think is going to work. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of.
Well, it's already worked, though. I mean, the work of the Downtown Task Force was very successful. And that's right. Oh, you think the zoning that just made it through town meeting was poorly conceived? I think it was
I didn't say that.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a very successful process that we went through. And I mean, I would love to give this presentation rather than just talk about the things that are in it, just provide the rest of the community an opportunity to know what those are. But I'll leave that up to the chair, how we proceed.
Mr. Carr, please lend your ear and give us the opportunity to go through the presentation. And how about this? We make an agreement not to make a decision tonight. This will be, we're trying to find a mechanism where all these entities can meet together but it's as a small group or a manageable size group, but not 20 people, just a small group, a representative from each of those groups, and we don't cross lines with the staff, internal mechanism, but what would be their scope of work so that doesn't happen? And you are well-versed in doing these things to get the exterior of
Sometimes you can't
Stoughton
discuss.
done.
Sometimes you can't discuss these things outside of other meetings because it precludes a vote that could possibly have gone a different way, and the task force has changed their minds. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing.
So I'm
Go
always
ahead.
looking
If you
to the
want to do
right.
it, I just hope that, I don't know what Joe would say, but if he isn't here for the presentation, we'll probably have to do it again and present it, unless he's already knows about it. I don't know.
I don't know. He didn't mention anything.
Well, also,
I was looking to the left. Go
I
ahead.
do feel
Vice
comfortable.
Chair
I mean, if this can, if I think having a member of the board not present for this and wanting them to be here, that's valid. So I will make a motion to table until our next meeting, at which point we can provide present it there and do it once, and we can all discuss it and get everyone's input. So yeah, that's fine. So I make that motion to table.
I'll second that. Second.
Just one second. Mr. Gito didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on this discussion.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It seems like the purpose of this Stoughton Economic Improvement Task Force is to present articles, zoning changes for town meeting. Is that, I mean, that's what I see as one of the deliverables by 2024.
It's only one area, but yeah, that's.
What are the other areas?
Let's see.
Because the other areas, as I see as measurables, are to make sure that we have over $800,000 worth of new development each year. I guess I'll have to read them all.
Yeah, I mean, we can go through.
Town meeting
By the time we go
article
through all this,
deliverables.
we will have given the presentation. But yeah, so we are looking for potential. I mean, we're not looking for anything specific. We're looking for people who know a thing or two about, people on the planning board who have opinions about things that might help economically, and select board, and as well as the redevelopment authority. Zoning articles would be an obvious component of that. But so would, I think what you're looking at were the measures of success, which could be deliverables, zoning articles to refer to town meeting, but it would also include a measure of the increase in economic development within the town, which could be measured by looking at both the increase in applications, but also an increase in, as you mentioned, new growth. So looking at the
Increase
things.
in what?
It would include both an increase in, so we're looking at increases in economic development, right? We're looking to measure increases in economic development, which will include both the number of applications that come in, something we could measure, and we could say we had more this year than we did last year, and we can attribute that to changes we made. And the other is an increase in new growth. If we want to see economic development, we ought to then also see new growth.
New growth. Does that mean economic growth? Is that what we're talking
As
about?
defined by the Department of Labor Services. So that would include increases to, let's see, I don't think I have that right in front of me. So it's Division of Local Services, Department of Revenue. So their definition of new growth, which I don't have in front of me.
Now, let me.
We're voting the motion to table.
I would like to suggest to us, the Board of Selectmen, that we have finished the downtown part of rezoning. My understanding was that we were then going to take on the role of rezoning the rest of the town, or I shouldn't say rezoning, looking at the current zoning and making appropriate changes for the rest of the town.
So-
That's what I understood.
Mr.
was
Gito, you are so right, and that's built in, that's baked into the presentation.
Right.
So-
So thank you very much. You answered my question. And
But I think Mr. Quara had another way of going about this, but he wanted Mr. McCrisky to be involved in the
you asked me
discussion.
my views, is that
Yes,
correct?
I asked
Well,
you. Table or not?
I'm going to continue then,
Okay.
because I thank you very much for your answer. The zoning, we did a master plan, that had several components. It had economic development, it had open space, it had recreation, it had housing, and 3 or 4 more things that some other members who are sitting in the audience could tell you about. The planning board would take all of that information in order to look at the rezoning of the town and not just have a group that looked at one aspect of it. As I understood it, when there was a certain amount of frustration generated because it took so long to do the downtown. And that's, I'm not casting aspersions on anyone when I say that, but there was a group put together to help to bring the ideas together for the downtown area. My sense is that we have a 5-member planning board, and I don't know what resources they have still available to them to hire a consultant to help them do the rest of the rezoning for the downtown, for the town. So maybe that's a very basic question. But it seems to me that between the planning board, the town planner, which we will get one of these days, and a contractor to help look at the zoning and look at all of the aspects of that go into deciding on zoning, would be able to accomplish what the purpose is. That's what generally happens in a community. I think it's a little bit, not only a little bit, but a lot premature to have a group just dealing with one aspect of planning. If one were to only do the things that are in this little package, one would want to sell the Glen Echo property for development, sell the armory, sell the golf course, and who knows what else, in order to be able to create more economic development. But you see, if we were to change those things and bring those forward to town meeting as articles to just deal with the economic development, we would have thrown away a whole lot of other things. It's a balancing act. It's not that you don't want to deal with the other items, but to bring items forward based on just one aspect of the issues that need to be dealt with when you're thinking of zoning
Point of order.
is a little bit out of line here.
Point of order. This is, I mean, you are going into the details of a presentation that has not actually taken place yet in order to decide whether or not we should table it. I find this is just, you've taken this, you're no longer discussing whether or not to table this motion, but instead
No, I know.
table this.
But can I get a second on the motion?
We did.
You second.
On
So
this.
then,
But if now I'm finished, we can table it if you'd like.
So-
And that's fine. But I was invited to comment on it, and that's exactly what I did.
and I appreciate that comment, Mr.
Thank you.
Gito. Mhm. So we have a motion on the table, and we're ready to take a vote on that motion. Mr. Carrara, to table.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cavey.
Yes.
Mr. Gito.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. This is table.
Madam Chair, may I just make a
Before you
quick
do,
comment?
Mr. Zemanian, I do want to recognize Mr. DeFelice, because behind you, he's had his hand up for
Understood.
a long time. Please state your name and precinct.
Ed DeFelice, Precinct 6. My point of information, Madam Chair, a couple of things. One thing that really bothered me early on was the makeup of the existing committee. We have a developer on that committee that's doing a lot of work around town. That, I don't think that, with all due respect to the person, he's doing a great job, but I don't think a developer should be on there guiding what's going to happen in the town. I don't think that's proper, but it's up to you guys. But it doesn't look right. It just doesn't look right to have a developer who is doing all sorts of work in the town, and he's doing a good job. Don't get me wrong. I am happy with what he's doing, but I don't think that's fair to do. And the other thing I was going to mention is, on your discussions, the planning board and the zoning board are there by statute. And I don't know why you guys are going to try to mess with those two boards. They're there by state statute, and they've been there forever.
Thank you,
and they can
Mr.
take care of the job
DeFelice.
without these little committees.
Thank you. So I'm going to take another approach to our total agenda, because it seems like we haven't had an opportunity to even deliberate amongst ourselves on what direction we want to go. Like, what's next? The bylaw rezoning was passed recently at our town meeting. So what do we want to do next? How do we want to prioritize our work? So that motion did pass, that we have tabled the Downtown Redevelopment Task Force. The next on the list is, wait just a minute, Mr. Zemanian, I want to be really clear on this next item, and that is the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. That's agenda item number 6. They also do not have a quorum. Do we want to table this until time served that Mr. McCrisky is also here so he can hear the presentation? Can I get a motion on that in a second, and we take a vote?
Madam Chair, we have a quorum. Reggie Nunnally is online. I did not recognize him
Okay.
just before I was given notice by Roberta, but I do have a statement about your prior item that was tabled.
Yes, out of respect for you, Mr. Zemanian, I did listen to other citizens on that. Even though it's tabled, it will eventually make its way back to the board for discussion, but of course.
Sure, and actually, it's a comment relevant to it.
Sure.
So the Downtown Redevelopment Task Force, just for clarification purposes, isn't a committee. It's not a formal committee, it's a task force. It was designed to assist authorities, boards, and committees in making good decisions moving forward, particularly with the zoning. That was a task force created at a joint meeting between the Redevelopment Authority and the Select Board. So if it is the will of this board to pick this conversation up at a later date, given that we were part of that decision to create the task force, I would like an opportunity from the redevelopment standpoint, authority standpoint, to weigh in on that. I have not had an opportunity to speak to my members about this, but we do have a meeting coming up next Wednesday, and I'm happy to put it on our agenda as an item for discussion. I bring this up, and I don't mean to drag up a prior item, but I think this is relevant moving forward. I do not know the details as to whether or not the Redevelopment Authority would be required to vote on a dissolution or not, or a redirection of it. I'm simply laying out how this came about, and I'm asking for a little respect in that manner, seeing as how it was the authority that assisted the Select Board in putting this together.
If I ask a question real quick.
Oh, yes, Vice Chair Cavey? Yes.
Mr. Zemanian, I appreciate you with having the sort of bringing the history in, because I actually did not remember that. I apologize for it. Was it strictly the Select Board and the Redevelopment Authority, or was the Planning Board involved as well?
I wasn't there, so.
Well, you
I
remember
wasn't a
better than I
member
do,
at
and
the
I was.
time, but I will say that I was told by Forrest Linwall, who does have a pretty good memory despite
He does. Yeah, he does.
his current medical condition, and he was very specific that this was an authority and select board decision to create the task force.
Okay, yeah, I'll go look through the history and I'll find that out. If it's something that we created jointly, it's something that we should address jointly. And I agree with everything you've just said.
Thank you, Mr. Cavey.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I wanted to recognize Mr. Gito and then Ms.
The Redevelopment Authority's task was to redevelop the downtown, not to redevelop the whole town. So I just would like you to keep that in mind as you move forward, because I'm sure that the Board of Selectmen would have involved the people who were responsible for doing the work in the downtown on that task force. But I don't believe that moving forward, it requires the Redevelopment Authority to be dealing with the zoning for the entire town. I would just suggest that to you as
bring up
something to keep.
You bring up a good point, because the Redevelopment Authority is next on our agenda, and they're going to talk to us about their scope of work and their priority. So if our presentation for the task force was to expand, and we tabled it, but let's say we had gone on and we decided, hey, that's a great idea. Then if the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority said, well, that's not their scope of work, then we have a problem, right? Because we had them on the list to be included in this task force. So I would like to recognize Mr. Scardino and then move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe Scardino, formerly the Planning Board. To answer the question, the Planning Board was invited to send one representative. We were not involved with the creation of that entity, and I agree with Mr. Zamanian's interpretation that it was a joint project between the Board of Selectmen and I believe it originated with the Board of Selectmen and the Redevelopment Authority. But the Planning Board was invited to send a member of its board to that body. And I would also like to mention to you that the staffing of that board, you missed a key factor. Mr. Cavey forgot to mention that the current staff liaison to that is not the Economic Development Director, but it's actually the town planner. Ms. McCarthy attended most of those meetings and was very active in those meetings. But the town planner was responsible for the minutes, I believe, and the scheduling thereof of the meetings. So that staff connection was included the town planner. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for that opportunity.
You're quite welcome. Going to our next agenda item, where we left off was... Yes. An opportunity to start your meeting. An opportunity to start your meeting.
I would like that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Please.
Didn't catch it on the mic.
Yes, something wrong with the acoustics. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. As chair of the Redevelopment Authority, I will call this meeting to order, and I would ask for a motion to open that meeting. I see Reggie Nunnally is online. Reggie, could you second that, please? I can. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is open. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Please proceed. So today you're here to present your urban renewal plan. On this sheet, it's called Stoughton Downtown Redevelopment Plan. So I don't know what the name is, the technical name or the legitimate name that you're going to use. Is it urban renewal or is it?
So, if I may, I want to thank the board for having us tonight. And I'd like to take a moment to lay out some of the things that the Redevelopment Authority has provided the town to date. Technology Drive was an initiative of the SRA that has brought tens of thousands of dollars per year to Stoughton. Our lease agreement with the construction and debris facility includes language that pays the town directly a minimum of $100,000 per year. The Redevelopment Authority contributed funds to provide the due diligence on the Randolph Savings Bank and train depot purchases. We also provided a non-refundable $25,000 deposit to enter into discussions with the post office, as well as an additional $5,000 plus for the survey of the land at the time. The SRA voted to provide a $15,000 grant to the planning board to facilitate the downtown zoning article. This grant was rejected by the town manager at the time because we requested input into the zoning process. The Redevelopment Authority has offered our assistance with the development of the Armory building that has been standing vacant for at least 20 years with no plan or development progress, but that was rejected. Members of the SRA initiated discussions regarding the implementation of the Town of Stoughton's Quiet Study, which was done in 2018 by the Select Board. It was also set aside at the time as being too costly. We entered into discussions with Senator Timilty, Representatives Phillips and Galvin, and through ours and others' efforts, that resulted in $2.4 million being included in the amended state budget for the town of Stoughton to complete this process. The implementation of the study could ultimately result in the town receiving upwards of $300,000 in additional tax revenue with new housing and new residents to bring life to the downtown neighborhood, thus ensuring that the small businesses in the area increase their customer base and profitability. In addition, although this may seem small to all of you, the Redevelopment Authority has recently helped 3 businesses to date to either move into Stoughton or increase their profitability while staying in Stoughton. This was done by direct contact with the Redevelopment Authority, local real estate agents, and business owners. And I am very excited about this forward progress and the efforts that we've put in and the fruit that those efforts have produced. The authority requested a meeting with the Select Board in January of 2022. We were ignored. Many attempts were made following that initial email, which was sent to all the Select Board members, that were ignored as well. When the Select Board reorganized in April, we again sent an email to the new chairperson. That did lead to various conversations that also produced no fruit, at least until today, some 8 months later. The Redevelopment Authority voted at our last meeting to wait no longer. The Redevelopment Authority is in the process of taking public comment for the urban renewal plan, and that public comment period will extend somewhere into the areas of Columbus Day in October. Each Select Board member was sent a copy of the urban renewal plan to date, which was in March, so there have been updates from then. Those updates with maps and new information will be provided to this board in August. And we welcome your comments and will incorporate any and all comments we can. I do want to thank Chairwoman Roberts for our most recent conversation in which she apologized to the Redevelopment Authority for the long and trying period of time the authority was sidelined. Her apology certainly seemed sincere to me, and I thank you, Madam Chair, for that apology. We spoke about several things during our conversation: how to better this beautiful town and the future of economic development in our center. But most importantly, we spoke about how we can move forward in the future in a positive manner, together. Being at odds with other boards and committees is not productive. Not all of us will see things through the same lens. Opinions will vary, debates will occur. This is natural and good for our town. Each board member that sits here tonight, authority members and select board members, were elected by due process by the people of Stoughton. We have a responsibility to those voters, to the residents of this town. What has been happening in our town politically is ugly and happening nationally, and has no place in a community like ours. It needs to end. It must end. The voters did not put us in office to work against each other, to steal each other's ideas. They put us in office to work together, to put our differences aside and make Stoughton a better place to live for us all. The Redevelopment Authority has been working on completing an urban renewal plan for our town. If passed, this plan will, over the next 20 years, fulfill the dreams and desires that our predecessors had for beautifying our center. It will provide infrastructure that developers need to make our center a more lively and inviting place to visit. It will provide much desired open space for all the residents to enjoy. This plan is meant to bring life back to the center of Stoughton, where it lacks it. The SRA waited over 2 years for the town to rezone the center, and that zoning passed town meeting very strongly. And I want to thank all the folks involved in this process for their hard work. The zoning was half the battle to make our center viable again. The second part is an urban renewal plan. This is the second attempt by the SRA to fulfill its duty to the town center. The first time, a prior select board refused to act on this, and ultimately it was rejected by DHCD because of that disagreement. I do not want to make the same mistake this time around. Chairperson Roberts and I spoke about forming a subcommittee, 2 members of the select board, 2 members of the Redevelopment Authority, perhaps even a town staff member as a liaison. We would review the URP, the Urban Renewal Plan, suggest changes, and bring forward a plan that is good for Stoughton and one that we can all agree on. I welcome this approach. If the Select Board agrees, we can form this subcommittee forthwith, put together a strategy, and really truly work together to help spur growth in our center. The other option is to continue on the path we're currently on. We'll be talking about this again in a year, 2, 5, maybe even 10. We'll be looking at the same sad situation where businesses struggle to survive and unfortunately often don't in our center. So we think the question tonight is, what do we want to be remembered as? A board who worked together to accomplish something, that put our differences aside and brought something forward that's great for this town? Or do we want to just sit back and let the status quo be what it is? At this point, I'm happy to take any questions or comments that the Select Board might have, and I do want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Before we open the floor to my fellow Select Board members, I would like to hear from Ms. Roberta Harback. I know, based on what I've seen in the past, she has a point she would like to make, and I have not given her an opportunity to talk to date, so I would love to hear your view.
Thank you. I was appointed by the governor. I was sworn in on Valentine's Day. So I was not a part of this urban renewal plan. So this is the other members, I guess, whatever you want to call it, baby that they have been nurturing for a few years. So I never voted, I never had really any say in it because this was pretty much done, like Mark said, back in January. That's why I had brought the armory, is something that I kind of wanted to make, but I'm not going to get into it. That's for a different day. So this is their idea. If you want my opinion on it, it's not going to be the same as theirs. I have a different concept. I have a lot of questions about impact on the schools, fire, police, parking, how it ties in with the MBTA communities, where you need no parking. And so I have a different thought process than Mark and the other members do.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. Fellow Select Board members, do you have any questions at this time, or shall we delay our questioning until?
I have a couple of questions I think that would be relevant.
Thank you.
Right now. Just we're welcome to
Vice Chair.
to another. You mentioned the Redevelopment Authority had already voted on this.
The Redevelopment Authority voted to not wait any longer to engage the public in comment. We'll need somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks minimum to engage the public. This was something we were hoping to be able to do back in March or April. Due to the extreme length that it took us to get here tonight, we didn't really feel we had a choice. We needed to move forward and engage the public. I do want to note that I still very much want the opinions of the Select Board, which is why Madam Chair and I spoke about a subcommittee. So it's not that we're casting you aside, we just simply can't wait any longer.
I understand that. And I wasn't really going to direct my comments or my thoughts that way, though. I see why you think that. When you voted on it, do you happen to recall what the vote was?
It's unanimous that we move forward with public comment.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Keeping in mind that the Select Board comments are needed, wanted, and welcomed.
Yeah, but you still had to do your part and keep on moving it. Otherwise, I understand you felt kind of probably like a sailboat with no wind, right?
No, it's been very discouraging, but I want to look forward now. There's absolutely nothing that we can do about the time period that has lapsed. I was very encouraged by my discussion with the Madam Chair on this and her desire to move forward as well. So that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight.
That was the only question. I just wanted to know what and Ms. Hardback, I definitely respect your opinion on these things, and I was curious to know what impact that might have had on the vote earlier on. So that was my purpose for asking that question.
Yeah, it seems that Ms. Hardback hasn't weighed in yet. That's how I summarize it. She hasn't weighed in. She disagrees. She has a lot of questions, not disagreement, but questions. And I think the economic development piece, the priorities for SRA is job creation, housing, and education, right? So when I went through your packet, I was looking for that to jump out, and I just didn't see it, so I just need to take a deeper look because maybe I overlooked it. But that's job creation, economic development, job creation, housing, and education, and how are you bringing jobs to the community?
So in answer to your question, and thank you for it, certainly job creation, housing, and economic development, economic growth are some of the key factors for the Redevelopment Authority. However, we're in no real position to make any decisions on education. That would be something completely separate. Although I will say the Redevelopment Authority has spoken about offering classes to first-time home buyers, classes for small business startups. What do we need to do? We have a bank consortium here in Stoughton, and our intent is to tap into that banking consortium and see what they can offer the residents. So if you're speaking about education from those terms, then absolutely, yes. We want to better educate our residents to better understand how to open businesses, understand how to get their first mortgage. These are things that are a little bit secondary to the primary focus of the Redevelopment Authority, which is, our primary focus is to redevelop properties that are stagnant, that aren't being used to their fullest benefit. And our interest is not to go plowing in there and take people's properties, but instead to work with developers, perhaps assist in combining properties, and certainly working with private-public partnerships and the CPC to create that coveted open space that our master plan spoke very highly of. We have some ideas. You will see those in the package that will be coming in August. But again, unfortunately, the update that you got is 6 months old at this point. So the one that you're looking through, been a great number of changes that have happened since then.
Thank you very much. I would like to have an updated view because specifically what I was looking for, I was trying to tease out what's the difference between economic development, what SRA does, and a capital project plan, which should be separate, right?
There's huge differences. We wouldn't.
And the second question I was really looking for is, how are you supporting people that grew up in the town of Stoughton to stay in their homes? You know, those that they were born and bred in the town of Stoughton and they're living in homes, and what are you doing to increase their quality of life? I was just hoping that you would share, and I was really hoping that, you know, we had a full board so we wouldn't have to go through a full-blown discussion again.
Well, I have no issue coming back in August to answer some of those questions, and I'd be happy to bring with us our consultant who has some of the professional experience to answer some of the details. But at the end of the day, as I say, because we've waited so long for this, I couldn't realistically, with 6 days' time, ask my consultant to put together a full packet and move that forward. So, however, we were on the schedule, and I wanted to take an opportunity to, A, lay out, you know, how we got here, and B, my hopes for a future.
And then I want to say one more thing. I didn't address it. You said about education. I know school committee is totally different, but I guess when I said education, I was thinking about bringing satellite schools like the BUs, like the Fisher, like the Stonehill College satellite here in Stoughton, which would help with education. So I was looking at it like that.
If there was a market for that sort of thing, I would absolutely embrace it, yes. That is not something we've looked at this point.
Okay. I'm just going to pass
Couple other questions.
I'm just going to pass it over to Vice Chair Cavey and then on around the table.
The Redevelopment Authority was established by town meeting, correct?
Yes, in 1963.
Okay, I appreciate that. So one of the things that there are elements of this that have me concerns, like too hard a word, but like there's issues related to taking by eminent domain, and there's some changes that you know, this redevelopment plan includes having the Redevelopment Authority have a lot of autonomy over decision making with regard to the downtown. And so I'll speak honestly, there's a part of me that's kind of like, oh, gee, oh, yeah. But at the same time, redevelopment authorities and the authority they have is was created by our state, voted into for our town in the 1960s, 1968, you said. So I'm gonna have to give this some thought, but I'm not sure to what extent are we sort of like, sort of stepping on the seed that we planted because we don't want to see it grow, right? And because we maybe don't trust that kind of autonomy in anybody's hands. And we've all town meeting reps, and we know how difficult and how sort of suspicious town meeting can be of those kinds of requests for changes. So at the same time, I'm like, there's a part of me that's very nervous about it all. There's also a part of me that asks, well, who am I to say we shouldn't do this? Because I mean, even I guess I am sort of somebody who should, but at the same time, like the town meeting has it was quite a long time ago, but they signaled by creating this authority that this is something that they want to see. And the state has provided resources to the redevelopment authority to do exactly what the town said they wanted done. And so I'm going to have, over the next little while, I'm going to be asking myself, like, why should I say no to this, rather than saying, why should I say yes?
Well, yeah, we want you to say yes. However, with that said, I think you bring up a fantastic question, one that I personally have struggled with. We have said a number of times before the planning board, at our own meetings, eminent domain is not of interest to us. However, with that said, Chapter 121B, which is the law that governs this from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, does in fact give the authority power for eminent domain. We don't need an urban renewal plan for that. It sits there now, and it always has. However, I've been digging around at this a little bit and trying to think, because I could think of at least one property in town where at least some people would certainly be in favor of an eminent domain situation. Section 50, and I want to tell you this is not something I've spoken to the Redevelopment Authority about yet. It's just something I stumbled in my research to answer the very question you asked, because I had the same question. Okay, I don't want to do this, but what about the next guys? Okay, I'm not going to be here forever. We don't know. Section 50 of 121B does stipulate that eminent domain could be given over to the select board with an urban renewal plan. Now, I'm not saying that's possible, and I am saying that it is something I would like town council to look at. If we did in fact set a subcommittee, that would be exactly the kind of question I'd want to address. We've got to put that concept of eminent domain to rest, because it scares business owners.
Yeah.
It scares property owners, and it scares town residents. And I don't blame them. It scares me. So it is something I'm looking into at all angles. At the end of the day, the state law grants us eminent domain authority. And it grants us it now. We don't have to have an urban renewal plan for that.
I appreciate that. I only have one other question.
Please.
Is that there's a great number of projects you have in mind. I can see there's still a lot to be done, but
Over 20 years, yes.
Yeah, but you're setting yourself up with a good number of projects, and just not that I need any specific answer, but that will be some of these might be expensive, or certainly none of them will be free. So, how do you foresee these being paid for? Would it be bonding? Or, and would that bonding be done by the town or by the redevelopment authority?
So another great question, Steve, thank you. What you are looking at in an urban renewal plan is everything that has to happen, okay? Or at this point in time, everything that has to happen. There are many things that could fall off. For instance, we had a project on there from 2016 that has already been developed and moved forward. There's a couple of them, actually. But this is meant to be a 20-year overview. All these things are a possibility. And then we reorganize those into priority groups. I know that from my personal experience and the opinion of other members, not all, but others that I've spoken to, getting open space developed is a big part of what we want to see as a town in the center. So I would think that would be a fairly large priority for us. There are a number of ways things like this could be paid for. Certainly, my first place to look is through private-public partnerships, where we put in a little and somebody puts in a lot, and we kind of get collectively a great project for the town. There are things developers want to be able to do. They may need relief on certain things. Community betterments or benefits are how that plays in. I will tell you that having had a discussion with many developers, although there's been no written commitment, every single developer we've spoken to has a real interest in aiding and assisting us. One in particular has done something very small already for the town. So I think, you know, it can be paid for a number of different ways. There is money you can get from the banking system to benefit communities. There is state granting funds that can be gotten. These are things that have to be worked out not only with the select board, but town staff, town management, things like that. So it isn't really something we want to go running off on our own and doing, but there's a lot of opportunity here to bring money from the outside. I think the Quiet Study is a great example of that. Make some noise, hear from other developers, this is important, bring that forward, and all of a sudden it kind of grew legs on its own and got taken care of.
Yeah, I appreciate your answers, and I know that they are, you know, calling for you, sort of asking you to speculate about, you know, these things that can be. Some people might hear that and say, "Oh, no, great! Now they're going to, you know, make us raise our taxes." That's not how I understood you saying that. What you're saying?
No, the
It seems
authority
like
doesn't work off of taxpayer funding
Yeah, but
directly. In other words, we wouldn't come to town meeting asking for an article for $3 million to do this or $10 million to do that. That's not to say that if the Community Preservation Committee didn't show an interest in creating open space in the downtown, we wouldn't want to include them as part of that process to assist in that creation. There's some legal shifting and movement that would have to happen there as well, and obviously for good reason, we'd need the advice of counsel to ensure we're not supplanting money or doing anything inadvertently wrong by trying to give the town what it deserves.
Yeah, I'll only ask one more question. I'll call it quits.
Please.
I appreciate it. The last thing is and my understanding of the you know the domain of the Redevelopment Authority, I would not like to be tested on it. So like I don't consider myself by any means an expert on this. My understanding, and you're welcome to telling me that I just don't know what I'm talking about, is that the Redevelopment Authority is really one of the rare organizations in their ability to take in revenues. So they're essentially segregated from the rest of town government, and could use those revenues for purposes of their choosing. Essentially, they don't go into the general fund. It's not something anybody else can use. They belong to you and you guys alone to choose how to use it. To the extent that you know, in order to bring in revenues, you have to have revenue generating programs. My question is, do you have any, or do you foresee having any that might offset some of these costs?
So, excellent question. We do have a small bit of revenue in a rental check that we get monthly from the construction and debris facility. We are also looking at generating some income from providing, you know, these mortgage classes, so to speak. I know Chairwoman Roberts had mentioned satellite schooling. That would certainly be a place that we could generate some funding. You know, there's part of the issue here, Steve, is we had an opportunity when we put the solar system on the landfill. And I think the town and the Redevelopment Authority could have benefited more greatly from a better deal. That was a requirement that we do something up there. And instead of looking at all the options, we essentially just accepted the option that was offered us. The most troubling part is we chose not to even participate in buying back that power, and I think if we look in retrospect, we could have made a better decision there. There are many companies that reach out to the authority on a regular basis wanting to profit from storage and willing to pay for storage of that. But because of townwide decisions, that opportunity passed. We're in a very similar and awkward position with the construction debris facility, which wrote what was nearly an eternal lease. Very, very difficult to make any changes there for that. So we're very limited with the resources we've been handed. Although, let's look at the positive. Technology Drive was nothing more than a swamp pre-redevelopment authority, and now it's a vibrant retail community and warehousing and office community. It's even begun to add some housing in there. Love it or hate it, it's there. And so the plan was effective, regardless of the implementation. The plan was very effective. The Redevelopment Authority is currently focused on the center. However, there's nothing that we could find in our bylaws, and I looked at it recently, as to the fact that we can only be focused on the center. It was truthfully something that I didn't fully understand, but there's nothing anywhere that says we couldn't pick up, say, the Armory or Campanelli Drive or any other project. Of course, I think that would require an invitation from our town and the select board, but we would certainly be happy to entertain anything that came to us from you. So we're always looking at ways to increase our monthly income, that recurring income. But my philosophy on this is a little bit different. I would rather provide resources for our community that benefits our community as a whole, even if it meant not making any money. And that's one of the things we'll be focused on in this coming year.
Well, thank you to all of the members of the Redevelopment Authority who participated in drafting this, and also for presenting. Sorry, Mr. Nunnally?
Thank you.
Just reaffirm the fact that two things. Number one, we don't operate off of any taxpayer dollars. And it's not our intention. Actually, our intention in trying to put the urban renewal plan together is to bring in additional dollars to the town from the state government. At the present moment, there's about $47 billion in excess revenue to the town, to the state, of which some of those dollars could be directed to Stoughton. We do not want to put any additional tax burdens onto the residents of Stoughton, folks being taxed enough. Number two, when we talk about revenues that we have, currently the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority is sitting on approximately $100,000 in the checking account. And a little over $600,000 in a portfolio that access immediately to cash. And then the real estate that we actually own is just over $4 billion. So we actually have assets of approximately $5.25 million that we would try to invest into the town, not for, as you said, for the Redevelopment Authority sake, but for the residents of the town of Stoughton. What we think that this urban renewal plan actually does is bring these three elected bodies, which are the planning board, the select board, and the redevelopment authority, all to be on the same page, so that we can present ourselves to the people on the outside of Stoughton why they should develop, attract them to come and do business in our town. And right now, as the chairman has indicated, our focus is on the downtown area.
Reggie, was
Thank
that
you.
all you had to say?
Thank you, Mr. Nunnally. Thank you. That was very helpful clarification.
I
Mr.
do
Gito.
apologize. I know it's hard to hear.
Yeah, it was hard to.
Mr. Nunnally, he is our treasurer, of the Redevelopment Authority, and I think many of these questions are great questions, things I want to bring back to the authority. Certainly something I would like to have this discussion at our next joint meeting, or perhaps even during meetings with a subcommittee if the Select Board so chooses to put one together.
Thank you, Mr. Zemanian.
Thank you.
We would like to get an updated package from you, but I would like to turn over to Mr. Gito. Did you have any questions, or Mr. Carrera? Or if you just want to wait until we get an updated package?
Which one would you
Gito?
like to talk to me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you, Mr. Gito.
Ms. Walsh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Redevelopment Authority for keeping up the tradition of putting out your minutes on time. You're one of the few organizations that do that. We have a policy that says that everybody is supposed to get their minutes online soon after having the meeting. You do that.
Paid secretary.
Maybe you should...
Thank you, Mr. Gito. I've worked very hard with Donna, and she
Right.
really needs the credit for that.
Right.
Ms. Jutras is our program administrator and does a fantastic job.
She does. She really does. Now back to the issue at hand here.
Please.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you want to move ahead. I can remember being in a position similar to yours several years ago, when it took years to get in front of the Board of Selectmen. I have a couple of questions. Well, I have questions about your funding sources and so on, which I think you're planning to update
Correct.
as you move through. So we'll get something on that in a while. I guess I'm interested in knowing, at your public hearings, your public meetings, get-togethers, whatever you want to call them, what are you seeking for input? Before you answer the question, let me tell you what I see in here. I see that you have a proposal to do your work in phases, and you're also looking for the town to turn over properties to you. The first phase seems to be the theater block. The second phase seems to be what I would call the 5 and 10 cent store and the post office block. And then I see the third phase is we'll pick off some other places along the line. And then for your request of the Board of Selectmen, you want us to turn over the train station, the Randolph Savings Bank property, the police station, and I believe the 16 spaces off of Freeman Street, the Pacheco parking space. We, of course, can't move the police department out of their space right away. The other three places we could do something with. What are your plans for the properties, the train station, the Randolph Savings Bank property, and the 16 parking spaces?
Thank you, Mr. Gito. So one of the things we're going to be looking for from the public is, do we have our priorities right? From their perspective as well as yours. It's not the select board's town, it's not the authority's town, it's the people's town.
Right.
And I really need to ensure that what we might see as priorities, the residents in general may not. And it's important that we take that into consideration.
So let me just see if I can get you right from this. At this point, what I'm hearing you say is you're looking at the broad part, at least in part, you're looking at those broad areas that you've laid out here.
Very
and
broad.
Asking for input from others before you put this final plan together.
Correct. We actually formed a citizens advisory group, which has sort of begun the foundational part of that. We really need to, A, hear from the public, but we also need to hear from the select board. You know, you mentioned a number of things, Randolph Savings Bank, train station, even police department, which it's kind of funny because I was really set against keeping that on there. However, our consultants explained to me, you're looking at something over 20 years. The odds of the police department staying where they are in 20 years may not be the best. So we should think about, if they were to leave, what it would look like and what the redevelopment authority could do to benefit the town by redeveloping that property. As far as, you mentioned the train station, that is a historical building that really the envelope of it can't be changed. However, it's also an excellent site for developing open space in and around. That might be something that, you know, the town would say, I'd really like some open space there. And this is just theoretical, nothing that we've gotten any specifics on yet. The Randolph Savings Bank is currently functioning as a great recreation center. Could it also function as a piece of property that could provide elderly housing for our town? It's certainly very close to the Cape and Street project, and frankly, it's a smart place for it. Are there a number of details between point A and point B to be figured out? Absolutely. That's why we need your input and also the public's input. I think everybody here has heard countless times, we need senior housing. We're doing nothing for the seniors. I can't say they're wrong. Everybody who says that's right. I think the trouble becomes, how do we provide that? That's where we start to spread out a little bit and our opinions start to differ. The aim of a subcommittee would be to tie all that in together, to listen to the public, listen to the select board, listen to the authority, the planning board. Let's not forget about the planning board. They are a big piece of this. All these pieces need to come together and gel together. And the town staff needs to tell us what's feasible and what's not. Council has to help us understand what we can legally do and what we can't legally do. I certainly, if we had a URP tomorrow, I wouldn't be saying, so you're going to hand those deeds over, Mr. Gito, because that's not a realistic approach. But I think it's important to have that conversation.
It seems to me that you also, if the town is going to do those transfers, there has to be use of those funds after you finish. And I guess it would seem to me that that might be an area where you might be looking earlier on to take advantage of a transfer of property so that you could you could move some of your other negotiations ahead and do the things that you want in your Phase 1 and Phase 2 study. And I presume that at some point, you're going to want to try to put together a plan that, that shows how you would get from point A to point B financially. And I think that that's very important, and which is the reason that I'm focusing on the things that you say you're interested in. I guess having the discussion is important, but having you have powers that the Board of Selectmen does not have, and in order to turn you loose on those things, we need to have a plan that seems as though it's going to be successful, and that people will get behind. And so that's why I'm trying to just ask the questions now, because if I don't ask them now, you're going to have to answer them at some point. Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr. Gito, and I appreciate not only the comments, but the questions, the direct questions, because it's good for us to know some of your opinions very early in this process, so we can better address those moving forward. So I do thank you for your comments and questions, and rest assured, these will be things I will focus on, as I will on any of the members' comments tonight.
So when I make comments to you, they will be on the Phase 1, Phase 2. Here are some other thoughts on that, et cetera. I mean, that's basically what you're looking for.
Yeah, we're going to, absolutely, we're going to generate from your comments some thoughts to the consultants, who are then going to incorporate those. Before we come back for any formal decision, though, we need to get back with you, hopefully through a subcommittee, to be honest, where we can say, is this satisfactory, or do we need to do a little more work on this section here? That's the critical part of it. When we come for a vote, my intent is, or desire, is to have it happen smoothly, quickly, and with a lot of smiling faces. And that only happens one way.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your responses, Mr. Zemanian. Thank you, Mr. Gito. Mr. Crowder, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. It's more like a statement that in this urban renewal plan, one of the most important things I think that should be in there is the thing that's going to bring the square together is it needs a parking garage. Everybody wants to build all these businesses and do all this stuff and put the theater back together, and I yet have seen how you can suspend vehicles in the air and park them without a decent garage. The Randolph piece of property is the prime site to ignite the center. You gotta give people a place to park, otherwise it's just going to be a never-ending story that we're searching for the answer. That hole in the ground, those people were looking for 3 parking spaces for 2 years. If we had a garage, it would have been solved. We have the property, we can go to the state, they have grant money that is just sitting in a vault, just waiting for somebody to come with the piece of property and say, we need help, we need this grant. Oh my God, here's the parking money, because nobody's taking advantage of it. But that, I'm going to tell you, that's the key to the center. You've got a woman who just put a business on Wyman Street. She'll be in here in 6 months looking for, what can you do to help me? I need some spaces. And then we're going to tell her, well, over the other side of the police station, there's spaces. Wouldn't you like to leave your Mercedes and your nice car over there, then go over to Wyman Street and pray to God that it's in still good shape over there? You can't hide from the fact that what's going on in this town is going on in this town. That's why you give them a secure place to park, and if you're revitalizing your downtown, Our rec center is not part of it. We were told we were going to get these 5-star restaurants, and we got all these liquor licenses, and what's happening? Nothing, because we don't have a place to park. That's why Norwood does well. They have lots. They took their things, they put the lots together. We have this property, we had to have the big search. What do? Quick, throw the rec center in there. So it shut everybody up. Didn't shut me up. I've been saying it for years. It's a parking garage that's going to ignite this place. Nobody wants to listen. I'll sit with them. I'll tell them what it has. It needs 3 floors and a roof. Nothing against Mr. Zamanian and about the elderly center, but believe it or not, you got a lot of elderly center on that side of town. Might go good on the western side, southwestern side, find something in there. The Winter Street factory was sitting there in disarray. That could have been turned over, working with somebody to make a little bit there. They like to go to church. It's on that side of the center. There's a lot of ways of looking at things. These, I know it looks good on paper and all that, and sometimes it doesn't happen. It all depends on the economics. We go into a little bit of a dip. This stuff's all dead. Where's the money coming from? That's why you can plan anything. It takes actions to cure the problem. And the only thing that's going to cure that square is you got to have a place to park. And then maybe if we had a place to park, you might be able to remove parking from one side so the traffic could flow better. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the first really in-depth conversation or deliberation the board has had. So thank you very much. There'll be more of this. But I would like to also ask Mr. Tisdale, please weigh in if you want to add something. Otherwise, we're going to once again ask Chairman Zamanian to give us an updated package. We'll review it and then invite them back to one of our select board meetings.
Madam Chair, if I could just address Mr. Carrera's comments briefly.
Oh, sure, about
Thank
parking.
you. Flying autonomous vehicles. I had a conversation with Elon Musk. It's going to happen, baby. We don't need that parking garage. No, in all seriousness, and I was joking in my head while you were talking, and that came to me, but parking is an issue. Yeah, you could smell the gears, I'm sure, but parking is an issue, and we recognize that, and this plan will be addressing some options for future parking. So I just wanted you to know it, not something we're ignoring. We're seriously taking a look at that as well. And thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me respond to Mr. Carrera.
You're quite welcome. Mr. Tisdale.
Yeah, I have no further comments. I just would like some time to review the plan. You know, I'd like to just digest the information before I comment.
Oh, thank you so much.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you absolutely can.
I did, yes, I did submit a plan that I had about senior housing that actually I discussed with Mr. Tisdale probably over a year ago that I did submit to you. So whenever you want me to come in, I've requested 10 minutes of your time. I think it's a great project, and hopefully you'll give me a whirl at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nunnally, I know you want action and not a lot of talking, but I want to give you an opportunity to share before we close this agenda item. I don't know if any other your members are on the...
Well, Madam Chair, I know it's getting late. I think our chairperson did an excellent job sort of laying out what it is that we're attempting to do in terms of the urban renewal plan. Clearly, we're going to get you an updated version of it, and I think you will see that the master plan is reflected or will be reflected all throughout the urban renewal plan. Any comments that the residents have and any comments that the select board has, and, you know, we want to assure you that we want to all be in the same sandbox playing together as opposed to being outside and trying to be one-off. I think Select Person Carrera was absolutely correct. Parking is essential, and he's 200% correct when he talks about there is a great deal of resources that are outside of Stoughton. And once we all get on the same page, I firmly believe we'll be able to tap into those resources without having to burden the residents with any additional taxes. I thank you for letting me speak. I apologize. I'm down in Miami right now doing some business. But I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Nunnally. So,
Madam Chair, may I make a motion to close the Redevelopment Authority's portion of this meeting?
yes, please take this opportunity.
By roll call, Reggie?
Yes.
Thank you, Roberta. And the chair votes yes. I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for your time tonight.
And thank you all so very much. This was really a healthy conversation, so thank you so much. And we'll quickly move to our...
If you would be kind enough to inform us what your decision, the Select Board's decision, would be on a subcommittee, so we can start to put the pieces together, that would be very helpful to us.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we are meeting next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. So if there is a decision by then, we could get that on our agenda and speak about it, and maybe come to some sort of an agreement.
It will likely be in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks.
The only problem with that is the Redevelopment Authority only meets monthly, generally. I suppose, well, I do have members that are out of town right now. I mean, does the Select Board have a general thought on whether or not you would be open to a subcommittee? I could have the Redevelopment Authority take a vote on it and then wait for your answer in 2 weeks. Would that be acceptable?
Well, we're going to delay that decision so we can have time to think through what you said and how we want to move forward. Like I said, this is really the first time we've had an opportunity to talk and about the whole idea of moving the town to this next step after the rezoning bylaw was passed at town.
Well, again, that's an unfortunate.
It's a lot going on.
Unfortunate byproduct of
Yeah.
waiting an excessive period of time. Okay,
Yes,
thank you, madam.
absolutely. Quite welcome. Bye-bye. I would like to reorganize our agenda item. I would like to take item number 8 next. That's vote on the warrant for the state primary election Tuesday, September 6, 2022. If our town clerk, Ms. Stephanie Carrera, could step forward, and we'll take your item next.
Why don't we just vote in favor? Do we need to do anything? I mean, we've seen it in front of us, haven't we?
Yes, but...
So could I make a motion to approve that?
I think we've done that both ways in the past, but I keep seeing our town clerk get up and sit down.
Okay, well, that's
but we
fine.
would like
Okay,
to
whatever
see
you
her-
want to do
her
is fine
beautiful
with me, but
face.
I'm just,
I doubt if we're going to vote against it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephanie Carrera, Town Clerk. This is for the warrant that's before the board is for the primary that's being held September 2nd, which is the day after Labor Day. And I thank you for calling me up and taking it out of order. I just want to let the board know that we will be having a Get Out and Vote committee meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock. And I'm going to update the board, that committee, on everything that is being planned. I'm also going to have someone taking minutes so that we can submit them to you, so you'll be able to know what exactly that I'm doing to get the word out to vote. I feel that we're going to have a lot of mail-ins for this primary. we're entering our cards now. That's what I was doing downstairs. And so tomorrow, the good chunk of them will be going out. And I'm in the election mode. And we'll be having early voting here at Town Hall. It's going to be held in the Fitzpatrick Room downstairs. We'll be using poll pads so that it'll be quicker and easier to get our voters in and out, the ones that do want to come in and vote, if they want to vote in person early. And we will be having Saturday hours for the amount of people that we have in our town that is registered voters. We will be open on Saturday from 9 to 3, and I will send you the minutes with all that information, so the board will have that for you to review and to vote on. This year, they're making us have the Board of Selectmen vote where we're having the early voting, and it's worked out well. We've had it downstairs in the Fitzpatrick Room. I've discussed it with the town manager, and he was, I don't want to speak for him, but he thought it was a good idea to have it there. That's where we had it the last time. We'll have a police officer there, so when we take out the ballots out of the box that we have both in the room and in the lobby, we have to log it this year and how many ballots were in there, and we have to have a witness. That's per the state.
Thank you so much, Ms.
welcome.
Carrera. I will accept a motion to approve the warrant for state primary election Tuesday, September 6th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you have a nice evening.
You too, thank you.
Okay, moving right along to accept land donation Goddard Highlands. After, I guess, is the owner of the land here, or is there someone to discuss it? We do have backup.
Chair McDonald was
information.
here earlier, but I think he
Oh,
left.
He left?
I don't see him here.
I wouldn't know.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Unanimous decision on accept land donation for Goddard Highlands. Moving right along to item 9, policy on special town council services. Votes may be taken. So, no, Mr. Tisdale indicated to me that this was an urgent matter. Okay. I have record, and maybe someone else has notes that are different, but on March 22nd, 2022, we discussed having general counsel, which is Mead, Talaman, and Casca, LLC, and we had a conversation of having Attorney Jack Dolan do HR work. We had Mead, once again, Mead, Talaman, and Costa during general matters, handling general matters, and we had Richard Bowman for licensing. And the reason this is on the table tonight is because there was an incident of who handles what business, even if it's one attorney has already started. Does the new general counsel take over? I think during the meeting of March 22nd, March 22nd, we finalized that decision, but Mr. Tisdale wasn't around. He wasn't privy to that information. So that's it. Mr. Tisdale?
Thank you very much. I won't make this too complicated, but in order for me to do my job, I just want to clarify in front of your board, so I'm not going in a different direction than I'm supposed to. That's kind of the point of this item. There was a list of projects that were clear that the board allowed Robin to move forward with KP Law. For example, the Tosca Drive intersection, something they've been involved with for many years, and we're almost done with it. Keep on going. there was an email on it. There's a list of existing projects. There's also a union contract that was discussed that we can continue because that's almost done. From Jack Dolan's standpoint, Lighthouse Legal, he's there for HR services to assist the town in a lot of different employment law issues, things of that nature. He does trainings. He's already done one on performance evaluations. He's got another one queued up for the SEOC group, and he also is working on the personnel bylaw, things of that nature. Jack works very well with Brian Winter. I think if they didn't have a connection, it probably wouldn't work so well. But they both know each other's strengths and weaknesses. So we do have a contract with Jack Dolan. Robin established a contract prior to me coming on board. So I'm pretty clear on the Lighthouse side of things, and I'm very clear on Mead Tallerman, what they're supposed to do moving forward. The one thing I just want to clarify was all the police-related matters are to stay with KP Law, as I understand it. There's a lot of obviously ongoing matters, and I just would like to get the board's input if that's how you understand it. Then we can move on.
Vice Chair Cavey.
That is my understanding. We've, I think, I'm not sure if it has been articulated in like a document or if it was articulated in a meeting. It may have been, an executive session or at some point where we don't have a clear record of it. But in the past, I think it's just just a matter of practice, but also because of its practicality, we've kept cases that have that an attorney's been following for a while with that attorney. One example, actually, the reason why we've continued to work with, even while we had KP Law as our, we worked with Mead Tellerman for a very long time, was because they were handling, because Brian, when he was town council many years ago, had been working on an abatement policy with, I think it was the Taj Estates. I could be wrong, but there was some entity which there was an abatement question. He'd followed that for a while as Greenbrook. I think it's Greenbrook. But we continued to use him until that case was completed, and then we actually found other cases that were so similar that it didn't make sense to start fresh with a new attorney, and he helped us out with the numerous similar abatement questions with other entities within town, and it made sense to kind of keep that information, and he had so much already going that we kept it going. We kept it with a single attorney, and that's been a policy for as long as I've been on the board. If there is a change in town council, to even in those cases, if we have somebody who's been following a particular case for a very long time, to allow for that continuity of information just to flow and stay with them until they've closed up that case. And so your understanding is identical to mine, and I don't know if has been articulated as a policy, but I think it protects the town to keep this information with people who have been following the case for a while, but also I think it's in the long run more cost effective, even if their hourly rate might be higher. The fact that they don't have to spend any time getting caught up on the case, ultimately in the past, I think people view that as to the financial benefit of the town as well.
Well, if I could pick up what Steve said, I do have it written down because that's how I got to do it. I got to write things down and make a list. So I can forward this to you and to everybody so they have the list so there's no misunderstanding. I just really don't want to go in the wrong direction by hiring somebody I'm not supposed to do something. So
I'm not sure if anybody competing about this.
No, I do not. That's what my notes indicate. Mr. Quora. Mr. Gito.
My sense is that unless there's something that's remarkably out of whack, the town manager, interim town manager, is the town manager now, and if he feels that there is continuity that needs to be maintained, then he should do that. the idea of paying $10 or $15 an hour more for something when you have somebody who has experience and a track record in a certain area versus having somebody else come up to speed, you quickly lose that $10 or $15 in the several iterations it takes to deal with the issue or issues, and especially in the area that he's talking about. It makes no sense not to do that. So I would say, as a general rule, that's what I would do if I were doing it.
Yes, Mr. Gito, I think I agree with what you're saying as well. There was an instant where two attorneys jumped to address a situation because of the unknowingness. And with that said, what do you think the next steps would also be? Developing a letter of a memorandum, so let's say especially our special counsel as KP Law is fully informed of what their role is? Or what do you think, Mr. Tisdale?
That was my exact plan, especially for KP Law, to get a memorandum of agreement established with a bullet list of these items we just talked about. I think we know what Meade Tallerman is working on. It's all the new stuff. It's the other stuff. But the existing stuff that's being worked on, I think we need to clarify with KP Law. They've requested that of me, and I think it's proper to do so.
Thank you. I think we solved that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Moving right along to the next agenda item, which is to ratify the alcohol policy review. We had some edits to our policy, and we specifically should address the BYOB fee schedule. So I can point out what the changes were they are highlighted. So on page 5, it has to do with alcohol training. Page 6, training again. Page 7 is regarding the fee schedule, which is going to be now an attachment. Page 15, is regarding fee schedule. And then the final one is, oh, no, that is the final. So it is the fee schedule. I believe Deborah LeBlanc provided us in our folders a copy of the fee schedule, and our attorney, Brian Winner, gave us some comps, some comparisons. If I can't. So it was on this handout. That's an email. And it has Gmail at the very top, Select Board, Stoughton Alcohol Policy Regulations, BYOB information.
He just wrote it in.
So Attorney Winner's reference Amherst, which is basically a college town, I would say. It has a BYOB fee of $20, but Boston has a fee of $400. So you can see the swing based on town size. Marblehead had 50, Maynard had 25. So our fee schedule, which was part of the attachment.
Could I suggest that we approve the written part of this, because we could do that, and we have to hold a public hearing on the fee schedule anyway.
Okay. Motion? I will accept a motion.
That is a motion to accept the text of the policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Cora? And I vote aye as well.
Now,
So
the
that's
other thing we need to do we can't just set the fee. We can suggest a fee, but we have to hold a public hearing on that, from what I understand.
That's okay. We can table it and hold a
If
public
you
hearing on the
want-
fee
if-
schedule.
If you want a plug number, I would plug $50 in, because it's a nice round number.
You were thinking what?
I thought 100 sounded better.
But communities aside
I don't care what other communities do.
I know.
You're trying to make revenue, here we are guessing if we
There
got
you go.
money, what's $100? I pay it.
Well, I have $50 on the table. You can have $100 on the table. I made a motion for 50. We can not do that, or
Was
we
there
can
a
do
second?
that. And then we can do the 100. We can
Yeah,
do
if we're looking for a second for a motion, I'd go with the 50.
I'm sorry?
So
He seconds your 50.
Oh, thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
And I vote no.
Okay, so that's 2 noes, 2 yeses.
right.
So
That's a
let's
fail.
do 100.
75. I'll be a nice guy.
If I get
Second.
a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I vote aye as well. Thank you, and we will move along to the next agenda item. Okay. Give me 1 second. The next 2 items were tabled. Item number 13, update on Community Paradigms Permanent Town Manager Search. Mr. Vice Chair Cavey.
Sure. Let me connect through the share screen there. See if I can get in real quick. I should have done this earlier.
While you're connecting, would you be kind enough to send last week's PowerPoint or whatever it was out to the rest of us? Because I could neither read it nor hear it.
Yeah, sure.
What are we on? Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Carver.
I am going to recuse myself from now on from this discussion on the town manager. So it'll be Steve, you, Lou, and Joe.
All right. For the records, let the record reflect that going forward, Mr. Carver will recuse himself from discussions on this topic. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to send over this document right now, so you have that on your own screen.
So I can download it? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you'll have the PowerPoint. You should be able to open it up on your computer.
Internet access. So I'll have it.
So while we're waiting for Vice Chair Cavey to pull up that document, we will also hear if we have to extend our search deadline, if there's an increase in fee. And, we had some other questions that we wanted to ask as well. So let's just give him time to find that document.
Okay. So opening up right now.
All right.
So this is also in the inbox for all the members of the select board. I didn't include Scott only because he just recused himself, but if he wants a copy of this, obviously, I'm happy to send it to him as well. So this is the progress update for August 2nd. Let's see. executive summary is the same. Brisk's open items issues is the same, with the exception that the last time we met, there was an open item. We needed to get the profile out. That's been completed, so there currently are no open items. The project is still in an amber state, but over the last week, some of the key accomplishments include the completed requested revisions to draft position statement and submitted version 4, which is what we voted on last week. Position statement approved by the select board. Town manager position ads have been placed and official recruiting has started. So the next steps are ongoing active recruiting. They were able to post the advertisement within only a couple of minutes of us providing the latest version. So this has been posted. This has been advertised since Wednesday of last week. And did want to update you on one additional element of this. Let me see if I can find the document here. So with regard to the town, with the profile itself, we just had some questions about the deadline for those documents to come in. Their update, I'll forward this as well to everybody, but the latest version, they included the following line about the application deadline. Position is open until filled, with a first review of application materials scheduled for August 28th, 2022 at 3 p.m. So and the review will be August 6th.
Would you say that again? I'm sorry.
I'm just making sure this thing's on. But the applications can be submitted until the position is filled.
Until a position is filled.
Correct. With the first round of review happening August 26th. But people can keep applying until the position is filled. So I think that bridged some of the gap that we had between, it being too short of a time frame for people to submit applications. Now there is none. They can submit it so long as the position it has not been filled.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you at the end of this meeting and make sure that I understand what you said, okay? Thank you. Would you also, can we also put that advertisement up on our website so that the people in the town know what our advertisement is?
Sure. I mean, it's a public document, so sure.
I mean, that seems like it would be something that we would want to do, to say, here we are, we've got these 7 pages, describe the town and describe what we want the next town manager to be like.
Yeah, I mean,
as the
we
person
advertise
walks
a lot of
on
things,
water.
and we don't necessarily put every advertisement on our town website.
I'm sorry?
We advertise things all the time, positions as well. They're not, and we don't necessarily put them on the town website. So, but I've got no problems putting this one on the town website.
I think that this is a little bit different from getting a loader, front-end loader. Right.
One might argue it is.
Right.
And I can also see an argument for not a reason to not put it on the town website, but maybe one where it's not necessarily obvious that we ought to. Though I think there's no problem with putting it up.
Good. So we will. Yes. Okay. Well, if you want me to, yes. Second.
If it gets you, second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Cavey, on your update, or?
Nope, that's everything. So we're right now we're in a we don't have any current deliverables. We're waiting on Community Paradigm to provide us with some information about who they are recruiting. Is that, well, yes, it seems to be a little bit better. So we're going to get information from Community Paradigm about who they're recruiting. As we get more information, we'll share that to the board. To some degree, we're going to end up we're going to have to be thoughtful about the way we manage this next section of our duties, because many of these applicants will assume some level of anonymity at this point. And so it's not something we can discuss necessarily in open session, who we have, what their qualifications are. And at this point, we would normally rely on a screening committee to weed out candidates that are not viable for the town. And so for Joe and I, we will be working on establishing that screening committee to be able to provide the applicants what they would expect and deserve, as well as the town, so we can get what we expect and we deserve.
So that screening committee is going to be made up of other town managers? Is that what I understood?
Yeah, we are pursuing having other people with municipal experience, town managers. I think there might be people from other towns who were on perhaps select boards in other towns.
Select boards?
That's my recollection. I could be we talked about it 2 months ago, so I may be
I
misremembering.
agree with you. Mhm.
But I that's what was my recollection, is that we our screening committee be made up of people who have to deal with the practical implications of hiring of a town manager.
You don't want any discussion on that, I presume.
When we established a subcommittee that would do this, that was the time where we had that discussion, and those authorities were passed along to that subcommittee. If you want to discuss it, we probably should wait until the rest of the board is here, and we'd have to bring up essentially reconsider the vote that we had at a prior time.
We established a subcommittee to work with Paradigm.
Yeah.
We never had a discussion coming back as to what the decisions that were made. And that's where we were. Look, I don't want to get into a big thing, but at the same time, if I might go on for just another second here, it seems to me that we're at the point of finding out not what the practicalities are of hiring a person, but whether or not the people that have applied are in fact capable of doing the job. And that's, I don't need somebody from Attleboro to tell me who I should select. I'm interested more in knowing whether the person that's applied from Maynard has the qualifications to do the work. That's the only point that I'm trying to separate out the two groups of people. I will stop.
If we were to do what you're asking, we would have to do it in an open session, and it would. So if what we need is right now is for people to weed out applications for people who are simply not qualified at all, who found our email addresses and are in our position statement and chose for this to be their first job out of college. And if people just to say that's not going to work here. Once we get actual viable candidates, then the rules change, and that's something where we would have to offer our own judgment on those candidates. But right now, we're looking for people who are aware of what the qualifications of a town manager are, practically speaking, and to be able to weed out those who are not actually qualified. Yep.
Okay, moving right along, without further ado, Mr. KV, I believe you said you were all set?
I am all set. I don't want to jump the gun here, but we don't have much on the consent agenda, and I would offer to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Consent agenda. We have a motion and a second on the table to approve the consent agenda. And Mr. Carrara votes yes, and I vote yes as well.
I vote yes.
Second. I vote
All,
yes
all in
also.
favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Unanimous decision. I vote aye, yes as well. I'll accept a motion to adjourn from our open meeting to go into executive session to discuss the strategy for negotiations with non-union personnel pursuant to GLC 30A, Section 21A, to the police chief's contract. I make a finding that discussing these items in open session may be detrimental to the town's negotiation or litigation position. Therefore, they will be discussed in executive session. We will not be returning into open session, but will adjourn from executive session.
Motion to enter executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening. Thank you.